My name's Sarah, and I came to Coventry a long time ago now to study theatre and professional practice at Coventry University. At the time it was a degree that I was really interested in because it offered a huge part of the degree was exploring physical work, and I knew at the time that that was something that felt very important to me. And while I was studying in Coventry, I started to make a lot of connections with some of the other theatre and dance practices that were happening in the city. The degree also gave me an opportunity to work cross art form, and I developed a real interest in dance at that point. And I always like to celebrate the fact that I found dance through theatre. I think sometimes it kind of happens the other way around, but it was a really lovely discovery, and the degree allowed me to explore that. And then straight out of the degree, we formed Highly Sprung Performance Company. Because we felt that there was still work that we wanted to do. It was a few of the graduates who formed the company in the first place. We did some really bad work, and then we sort of found ourselves, and the company is now just two artistic directors who are both founder members of the company, and we've grown since then. I'm the executive director, and then we have Mark, who's the artistic director, and both of us are really thrilled. Last year we became a charity, so we now have a really rich resource in our board of trustees who are helping us to really focus in on what our vision for the company is moving forward. And we still remain really fundamentally committed to the development of children and young people through movement, and we've become very much involved in other larger areas of work, such as looking at how STEM works in schools, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and how movement can be a much more embodied process of learning. So we've been doing a lot of work with academics at both Coventry University and Warwick University to explore what that looks like and how our practice can contribute towards that. It's really important to us that we're meeting the needs of new audiences. So everything that we do is not about entertaining arts audiences that already exist, but about taking our work into places where we're going to start to meet new audiences. And it might be that our outdoor arts work is the place where that first happens. They might encounter a production in the street or in a shopping centre or a park and become immersed in it. Highly Sprung is a physical performance company, so we like to describe our practice as sitting somewhere between contemporary dance, drama and storytelling. We create a lot of work in a lot of different places. I don't think it's easy to describe us as having one thing that takes more precedence over another. Everything that we do is all about helping to develop children and young people. So all the work that we do has that focus. We work in schools through education and creative arts projects in schools, sometimes making performance work with children from as young as 4 years old all the way up to university age. Some of that work happens in school. Sometimes we run festivals that happen outside of school. Currently we've got 2 annual festivals working with schools. We have a primary schools festival which explores the relationship between arts, science and maths, which is beautiful, allowing us to dance with number and explore different sciences through movement. So that's a really lovely festival. And we also have a secondary school physical theatre platform where we work with schools with young people from 11 to 19 to look at how they develop their physical skills. And alongside that work, we also tour professional work, which is for an audience of children and young people. We tour work to arts organisations and venues. We did quite a large tour of a piece which was about mental health, which was for audiences of 14 plus, and that did a national tour to arts venues. But we also do an enormous amount of outdoor touring and work both nationally and internationally. We have a production called Urban Astronaut, which really came from our interest in developing aerial work alongside the physical theatre that we'd been exploring. So Urban Astronaut takes place on a aerial rig which is mobile and allows our performer to go up to 6 meters up into the air, spinning, and tells a story of climate change. So we're very excited to have just moved into this space. It's called Temple Workshop, and it's in a new part of Coventry for us. We've just moved from the Daimler warehouse, which is behind the canal basin, where we've been working with Imagineer and Media Mania and Rebel Manifesto Aerial, and we've moved out into this temporary space while the Daimler powerhouse is turned into a state-of-the-art creative hub. We like all kinds of challenges, making work in all different spaces. I think we're particularly interested in spaces that tend to be more ignored. We like that element of surprise, so we are investigating a project at the moment which will take place on the side of a building in Coventry and take people really by surprise, where the action, you know, the aerial dance is happening up above them rather than on street level. And I think that's what really excites us. So we're never single-minded about where our work takes place. I think we're always very inspired by the subject matter of a performance, but also maybe a space might inspire us and help sort of that direction grow. I know this vertical dance project is being very much inspired by the building that we're looking to use, so it's definitely a kind of a two-way thing. There was something magical about Coventry that when we first moved here sort of became part of my own culture, and I came from southeast London, and it's obviously a very different environment to come to Coventry. Coventry almost had a bit of a village feel for me, but there was a deeper sense of community, which I think a lot of people would say, no, there isn't, and people in Coventry keep themselves to themselves. But there is some deep-rooted sense of community and belonging that exists within Coventry and within its people. And Coventry also has this amazing ability to kind of open its doors, and it's felt like the right place to make our work, because it's always felt like there are people who are holding you up, and there are new people who are making discoveries with you, and that's always been a really positive feeling. And I think it's felt quite exclusive to Coventry. When we've gone to other places and made our work in other places, even though it's been successful, we keep coming back to Coventry, and Coventry keeps on giving us inspiration, and it might be in the people that we meet or the stories that the city has to tell, but I think it's contained enough to still retain that sense of community, perhaps even without it knowing itself. At the moment we have a youth group called Sprungsters, and we have 3 different groups. A really young group for age 4 to 11, and then 2 older groups. And the 2 older groups at the moment are working on a project which is about youth social action, because I think giving people a chance to say something through their arts practice and through performance is something that feels really important. And this project has allowed us to make a partnership with Coventry Refugee and Migrant Centre, and that's opened us up to meeting a whole new audience of people who we've not experienced before, and given us a really privileged position to hear their stories and to understand how they came to Coventry and how Coventry has been a place of sanctuary for them, and for our young people to have the opportunity to experience those stories firsthand and to understand how privileged we are sometimes in our own lives, and how we can use that privilege to then help support others, has been a really important journey for us. I think Coventry has been a city that's always surprised us. I think you don't have to dig too deep to discover something new and exciting about the city. And when we were first starting to make work, we were very interested in trying to uncover what Coventry had to offer, and we're very interested in making work in different Coventry sites. One of our very first pieces of work was in Priory Gardens in Coventry, which has become one of my favourite places in the city now. It's quite an undiscovered place. Not many people will spend much time there. It's kind of a bit of a walkway through, and now there's a really popular restaurant right nearby, so it has definitely become like a thoroughfare. But the richness of its history just was incredible. We were able to make a piece which I still look back on as being a piece which kind of started a real journey for us in wanting to explore stories more and understand how history can actually have a really rich influence on your making process. So the stories that we were uncovered were stories about Coventry's very first monastery, which was buried deep below the ground and had this terrible bishop who persecuted all the monks there, and just these wonderful stories, and all the monks ganged up and tried to murder this bishop, and eventually, you know, the bishop died and the church was set on fire. But alongside that, some really beautiful stories. There was a statue in Priory Gardens, and we wanted to understand more about this statue. And it turned out that she was a woman who was wrongly accused of witchcraft and was actually drowned. And she lost her family. She was a very wealthy woman. She lost her family. She had her children taken away from her, and eventually was murdered, basically, for witchcraft. And Coventry has this rich history, and it just keeps on giving. Every time you think you've discovered everything you can, you keep finding more. And I think working alongside Imagineer, they have a really wonderful way of finding these stories and bringing them to life. And I think because we worked so closely with them, that's had a real influence on us as well, and gave us an excitement about the city that I still think is a light. So we have been taking this table around with us for just everywhere we've been for quite a number of years. It's probably more than 10 years old now, and we're really glad that it's made its way to this new space with us. It's a table that's been in a lot of our performances, and we started to think, come on, we need to move a little bit further away from just using this table. But for us, it became something that allowed us to explore our physicality more. It's something that we can stand on, that we can go under, and it moves beautifully when you hold it above your head and move around. And it's now something that we use with our young people as well, to give them that first introduction to how might we start to use set pieces and furniture to extend the physicality of our movement. It's also been used in a performance that we made about the first ever hydrogen bomb, and it was a story of a scientist who was a Jew living in Germany during the time that the Second World War was just about to break out. And so it was a really nice parallel to look at someone whose science was incredible enough to give us the hydrogen bomb, but also, you know, is a devastating thing. So that's our table. I was genuinely thrilled when they announced that Coventry was City of Culture. There was an enormous amount of hard work that went into the bid. The team worked really hard to make sure that the bid really reflect the art and the culture of Coventry. It didn't feel like it was something that was added on. And for me, it was a real point of celebration, because it meant that culture and the arts had a place on the table, and it was its turn to be valued in the city as something that can change people's lives, something that can change the culture of the city, change the perception of the city, and also change the economy of the city. And I think it feels like it might be happening anyway, but it feels that a lot of investment has come into the city, and that we're starting to see the city sort of start to build itself up a bit more. I think there is still a journey to go on. I think we've got the right people who are leading City of Culture and who genuinely want to make it a year of celebration that involves the whole city, and that is not exclusively for an experienced cultural audience or, you know, a typical arts audience, but is something that is meaningful and something that is for the people. I think working collaboratively is a really important part of any artist's work. I think it's very hard to make work in a bubble. I think we're always looking outwards, and we're always looking at how other practitioners can influence our own development and practice. Working alongside Imagineer just grew very organically for us, and has been something that has continued to sort of be fruitful and positive, and I hope that we, you know, give them as much as they give us. Seeing other artists in the city sort of starting to reap the benefit of collaboration as well is another really positive thing. I think it's been growing since before we entered into 2021, even in the bidding process. There are so many organisations. When we first started all those years back, we were invited to become part of Coventry's theatre network. Now, that network only lasted for about 18 months, at the beginning of our career. But that network feels like it has still continued, even though it hasn't been formal. I just feel like there is a family almost of artists in Coventry, and you always see them at different events, and you know them and they know you, and we support each other. It doesn't feel like it's a competitive environment. It feels like people want to see the best for each other. So if somebody gets funding, it's a really wonderful thing, and if somebody's doing a project, we want to support it, or we want to get them the right people there. So it feels like Coventry's network of artists is really sort of strong and spreading, and it's lovely to see it keep growing.